Today I want to talk about hospitalizations in reference to hospice care. So say you or your loved one is receiving hospice care and why hospitalizations are futile, particularly while you're receiving hospice care. My name is Abigail, here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying at end of life, so we die better at end of life. Let's get into it. So hospitalizations at end of life, particularly when someone's on hospice care. Let's say your loved one is on hospice care and we have this ingrained thing in us that has taught us that when there's a medical emergency, in particular any emergency, that we call 911. And there has been a real case for that. It's been beyond useful. Thank goodness for it. But when your loved one or you are receiving hospice care and they're already on hospice care, you really need to think about whether these hospitalizations are in fact useful. And in my experience, in my 20 years in the medical field, 15 of those being in hospice, the issues that I saw with people going to the hospital end of life were quite a few. So normally when you're working with a hospice team, you're going to be talking about what happens should a medical emergency happen. And usually the family, the patient, and hospice agrees that if there's a medical emergency, since hospice is managing the entirety of the medical care, you're supposed to call hospice first. You're not supposed to call 911. That's typically the case. And very, very few times is most of the time when someone's on hospice, they don't receive CPR or any resuscitation anymore because the person is deemed terminal. And those types of interventions are very futile. So with that said, and with the right agreement and right understanding that you call hospice first for any medical emergency, you should always be calling hospice first for any medical emergency. Even though that's the case, I would sometimes see people, rightfully so, they're still kind of trying to change their ways or just kind of get used to the fact that we're doing something a little different. If a medical emergency happened with their loved one, they would want to call 911. And of course you'd want to call 911. You feel like you're going to get things faster. You got an ambulance that can drive through traffic and come really quickly. Okay, I get that. Now, what the issue is with that, though, is a lot of times when someone who's on hospice and they go to the hospital, they do a couple things. One, they may run some tests, and those tests will tell you what you already know. So you're basically not learning anything new. That you basically, confirm that yes, your loved one is still dying. And secondly, they give you treatments that usually you can give in the home under hospice care. So what does this mean for hospitalizations in general? You really want to avoid them at all costs. Again, if your doctor, especially in hospice, tells you to go to the hospital, you go. But generally, when you are under the agreement with your hospice provider that you call hospice first, what you want to do is, in that case, say, especially if your loved one has had prior hospitalizations, take that information from those prior hospitalizations and find out what was the symptom, what's the issue that mom keeps getting, or the symptom that we've seen pop up that has caused a hospitalization or wanting us to go to the hospital. And secondly, what did they do in that hospital visit? What were the medications? What were the other treatments, interventions that they did? And how can I work with my hospice team and make sure that we have things set up at home and in place so that if and when mom has these symptoms that happen again, I can go ahead and give her A, B, and C, proceed with a plan while I call hospice and get somebody here from the hospice team to help me out. So hospitalizations are very futile, typically at end of life. They're typically exhaustive. They're exhausting type of experiences because the loved ones and the patient are in the hospital for a long period of time, and they really, really fatigue the person that's there. They're typically uncomfortable, they're cold, and particularly for someone with dementia or any type of cognitive involvement, it's very intense and it can really elicit a lot of stress for that person because they just don't understand what the noises are in the ambulance, who the people are, why people are touching them, and they don't understand where that's all coming from. And that I cover that in one of my dementia videos in the dementia series. And it's a very uncomfortable, really stressful time for the person with any type of cognitive involvement. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you want me to go a little bit in depth on anything I said. I will be doing videos on some other aspects of this video because they do deserve a deep dive. But other than that, my name is Abigail, here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we all die better in the end of life. I will talk to you soon. I hope you have a good one.